Join us now as we enter the grove. We walk over to the fire and we sit down next to a very jolly man playing a harp. The Dagda is there, singing a wonderful song. We join in, the roaring fire before us with a giant cauldron sitting over top, boiling with just amazing smells, the yummiest food. He hands us a drink. We start staring into the fire, singing, drinking, and getting a bowl of delicious food from the cauldron. As we're staring into the fire, our gaze starts to get a little fuzzy, and we're listening to the Dagda playing a song on the harp, and we start to see we're back at Imbolc, and the seasons start turning from winter to spring. The ice and snow melts, the grass turns to green, flowers start blooming and growing, life starts springing up, animals start moving around more. The Dagda continues to play his harp. Now we notice the seasons start to turn again. Spring starts to warm up and turn it yield into summer, and the first harvests start to come in. Greetings. Welcome to Planning for Beltane, Song, Drink, and Fire, as we walk together down Creation's paths. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Today, we're going to walk through the planning of Beltane, Song, Drink, and Fire. We're going to honor hospitality, abundance, and fertility. So as we go through today's planning, we're going to start with the quiet morning meal. So important. We'll talk about it a little bit. We're going to go through joyful preparations, gathering the community, building for the climactic ritual fire, and ending with reflection and community.
But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever the app is you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss a thing because we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. All right, let's just get into it now, shall we?
The first thing you want to do when you start with your planning is you actually want to set your intentions. It's like all magic. You got to start with the intentions. So we're going to start just briefly recapping what is Beltane. It's a fire festival marking the start of summer. The themes around it is hospitality, abundance, protection, and fertility. Now, fertility of land, animals, creativity, and be very mindful and respectful to yourself and your guests when you're setting the intentions of fertility for people. Make sure you include the caveat, those wanting fertility. We don't need to cause a whole bunch of accidental pregnancies and such.
We have a friend who we jokingly called the pregnancy witch because you have to be very careful if you are a person capable of bearing children when she is doing any magic related to fertility, because everyone in her circle tends to become with child when she's doing this work. She's very
potent.
Yes, that's
very potent in her workings. So yes, the fertility, you definitely want the land fertile because you want your plants and everything to be growing so you have an abundant harvest. You want the animals fertile because you want abundant harvests, and creativity to be fertile. Everyone should have abundant harvests of creativity in their life. But as far as human procreation goes, definitely put in the caveat for those wanting.
I feel like this year we've had a very special blessing because we had a volunteer plant grow in one of our planters. We didn't know what was. We had no idea what it was, and we started looking and then tried to figure it out. And when we finally found out what it was, it has many names, but one of them is Witch's Fire. I have become obsessed with this plant because, one, it's beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. But also, given all the work that we've been doing this year and this season, to have this beautiful, I don't even know what to call it. It's like reddish fuchsia-y, like as close as you can get to purple while still being red flowers.
It really is stunning.
And that are growing that look like almost like bursts of magic, like you would see in anime, in these big clusters all over it. It is such a beautiful plant. And as we're heading into Beltane, it is such a beautiful, I don't know, it feels magical that this plant just spontaneously grew up in one of our planters without us planting it, without us putting it there. It's just there. It's such a blessing this time of year. And that's the kind of blessing to look out for. Now, I do want to
Yeah.
say for the record, if you're new to this podcast, you'll notice that Brian is saying Beltane and I am saying Beltane. The same word. I am saying the Irish version of the word. I do sometimes say Beltane. Beltane is actually derived from the Scottish word as it came into English, because my practice is much more derived from Irish paganism. I tend to say Beltane, but Beltane and Beltane, same thing, just differently.
And another thing when you're setting your intention is remember to set an invitation for joyful co-creation and sacred community, because this is very much a community festival. And so you really want to make sure you're having that thought in your mind through all of your planning, is building, reinforcing, promoting that community aspect of your community. Of course, another thing to keep in mind when you're setting your intentions and doing your planning, this is the Dagdaless festival. We think of that, Dagdaless, the god of plenty, music, magic, and mirth, and that is very much Beltane. It's all about that. Also, fertility.
Yeah, I was going to say, not just fertility. He is the one who likes to engage in the magic of pleasure that happens with more than one person being very close and intimate with one another. In fact, many of the descriptions we have of him include descriptions of his tools that allow him to increase his and others' pleasure, shall we say. I've tried to keep this as PG as we can, but yeah, the Dagda is very into love. Yeah, let's say love.
That was a thing I found hilarious when I was first reading about the Dagda and stuff, that I was learning about his tools that the Dagda is known for, one of them being his club of life and death. And when I was first reading through, I got a little confused. I started to question if there was a second club of fertility that might be involved, and then I realized,
after a fashion,
after a club of fertility as well, that out in the writings.
He's called the youthful one for a reason.
Yes. And it's not just for causing mischief, fun, and mirth. Along with his tools, though, the Cauldron of Plenty definitely comes into play. It was a cauldron that no one went away wanting. And the harp of music. With the harp, there are 3 noble strains, one for invoking joy, one for invoking sorrow, and one for invoking sleep or slumber. Keeping that in mind when you're doing your planning. We'll come back around to that a little bit later on when we talk about putting together your playlist or structuring the music for your feast.
And if you want to do a really good deep dive into that, John over at the Irish Pagan School did a wonderful video on the 3 strains of the Dagda and the Dagda's harp, and retells the story of him regaining his harp. It's a beautiful video. I highly recommend.
Very helpful. Wonderful information in there. Another thing to keep in mind, the Dagda is a joyful host. So, of course, no one leaving the table hungry, which means when you're planning the food and drink part of your feast, plan to have leftovers and plan what you're going to do with the leftovers, whether you continue to feast on them throughout the week or donate them to somebody or share them out, have to-go boxes for all the guests to take some extra with them so they can also enjoy throughout the week. But when you're planning, you want to plan for leftovers. So when you're planning, keep in mind you're balancing your own needs. We all have a budget we have to work within. And when we talk about the food a little later on, we'll go into more detail on that. But of course, you need to keep an intention of abundance, but working within the realities of your own means limits. You don't want to make yourself bankrupt over, leave yourself wanting because you put everything into one feast at the same time. It's a delicate balance between practical and your intention.
As I've mentioned before, my first experiences of Irish paganism were being invited to Beltane bonfires back in 1994. And they were always done as, I would say, like a semi-potluck, where people brought something. Now, they weren't always bringing food. One gentleman always brought his meads in because he was a home brewer. Other people brought various fruits and vegetables. Other people brought prepared meals. Some people brought their talents, belly dancers, drummers. There were a lot of barons being played, a lot of drums, a lot of drumming at these events. And so this is a great place for people to bring and share in their abundance, whatever that is.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because that was something I wanted to remind everyone when they're doing their planning. Remember, it's a community event. So the burden of bringing everything can be shared with the community. So as a host, it's okay to plan more potluck, allow the room for the guests to bring stuff. And as guests, if you don't have to do all this planning and work, as a guest, check with the host. Ask them if it's okay to bring something to help with the abundance, to help bring extra energy of abundance and extra in the event to make it even more than it is. And just checking with the host is a great way because the host won't feel awkward about asking the community to help bring stuff, but also they can then help coordinate so that not everybody brings a bag of chips or a soda or something. They can help coordinate some of that.
I think the lost secret of abundance, because of this weird individualism that's taken hold in the United States and other countries around the world, is we forget that we have abundance collectively and very rarely in isolation.
Yeah, very rarely in isolation. And it's one of those things because someone may have connections or access to good, inexpensive proteins. Someone else may have access to good and inexpensive grains or good and inexpensive starches or the vegetables, or as you said, like the music. You may have wonderful talent in your community for performing music, and then you don't have to worry about paying for music then at that point because they're going to be able to bring that abundance with them because they have that abundance that they can bring. And it really makes the entire gathering so much more when everybody is able to participate. It helps weave in their energies in with everything else because they have vested interest now in the party.
The Beltanes of my youth, one of the things that I love that they did is it's traditional to pass between the flames to receive the blessing for the holiday. And they would have candles set up by the door so that by walking in, you walked between the two the flames of the candles to receive your blessing as you came in. And I really loved that as a very simple way to accomplish this. You can actually look at how Beltane is practiced in Ireland today and see some of the very elaborate fires that are used for that. But again, be mindful of the space in which you are living. A lot of us are living in red flag areas, and it is not safe to light big fires. So be mindful of that. We're actually going to be using a little camp stove for our Beltane this year. And because it's not going to be safe to actually have a big roaring fire.
The last thing for the setting the intentions, don't forget to invoke the Dagda spirit when preparing your food and for the music and the lighting of the fire, like with the candles. If you're going to do the candle, walking between the candles part, a wonderful part to add in. So the first thing when you're planning out your day, don't forget breakfast. That April 30th, that morning, there's so much to do the day of. If you don't have that proper energy level set up, it's going to be so much harder. This is something I've learned through many decades of planning and executing parties it's so easy to forget breakfast. And then the morning you get up and you're like in crisis mode, do whatever you usually do. The extra energy level isn't there. Breakfast really helps to set the tone for the day. One of the traditional items of the day is a coddle. It's a rich mixture of eggs, butter, oatmeal, and milk done as a porridge or a drink. And like for us, one of the things we're planning on doing the morning before Beltane is we're actually going to make a nice rolled oat porridge because that will cover our butter, oats, and cream and stuff. It's a wonderful little thing. It's actually something that I'll set up the night before going to bed. And we've got a Zeroji and we can just set the timer on it so that morning while I'm trying to get coffee made and get my turn on, a chime will happen and breakfast will be almost done. What is also super helpful to bring of. And because honey is part of that too, I'm going to try more of a honey type oats instead of a traditional maple. I'm curious to see how that's going to work out. We'll let you know when we do our Beltane party later that day, or at least we'll let the community know that I may be giving out secrets. Another thing I love to do is a coffee ritual in the morning with Dagda. So that morning, I'm planning a special coffee ritual. I encourage everyone to do this since it is the Dagda's day. And what that is, it's normally I would just do a regular coffee. So that morning, I'm planning a special creamer for the coffee. And the ratio on that is for a 16-ounce cup. So what we'll do is I'm going to do some heavy cream. I'm going to warm that gently in a pan with some butter. By warming gently, I'm going to heat it up, but not let it get quite to a simmer. Once it starts simmering, then you're going to have to worry about scorching. But I'm going to get it hot enough to melt the butter, just under a simmer. I'm going to add some sweetener. In ours, we use stevia, but sugar is just as good. And then some vanilla, because I think that'll make quite a delicious cup of coffee. It'll be a much richer, more buttery, creamer mix.
Butter coffees are amazing. I just want to give a warning. Try to use unsalted butter. Use unsalted butter. Salt can bring out some of the bitterness in coffee.
Yeah, you don't want the salt. Thank you. Use unsalted butter. I apologize. It's the chef in me. Whenever I say butter, I'm assuming unsalted butter. And in this case, definitely yes, unsalted butter. Do you want a ratio of 1/4 of the creamer mixture that you're making to the coffee? So in a 16-ounce cup, that'll be 4 ounces. And I'll measure out the 4 ounces of the creamer mix and put it in the cup first, and then just fill the rest of it with the hot coffee once it's ready, and then enjoy. What we're planning on doing is, with that, I'll have the Dagda's cup prepared first. And with that Dagda's cup, it doesn't have to be a full 16-ounce cup, but it should be a nice cup. And there I usually just do 4 ounces. So I'll measure out 1 tablespoon of the creamer mix and then 3 tablespoons of the coffee. And then that's the cup for the offering to the Dagda. I have a good advice that's going to be quite a happy offering. Heavily suggested to do that. So I'm quite excited to see how the day goes with that. And of course, setting the intention of abundance and mirth and everything, and joy and community along with that. And then another optional practice to keep in mind for that morning is collecting the dew. It's very traditional to collect the dew for beauty and blessing, and also lighting a candle. So if you're going to collect the dew, then you want to make sure you set a timer to get yourself up early enough. Or if you're a night owl, then
So my coven used to cheat, and they would actually lay out like washcloths the day before so the dude could actually collect them. And
which is just brilliant.
go out
Just
and then
brilliant.
you'd grab a
Yeah.
washcloth and you'd wash your face with it and use it.
I know whenever I first heard about the practice, I just imagine people with a squeegee, like trying to squeegee each little blade of grass into a little, but I'm just like, how do you go collecting the dew? And then I imagine taking like a washcloth and just gently wiping over top of the grass.
Generally
I've never
with
seen
your
that
hand.
practical.
Usually you just would use your hand and
Yeah,
do it.
definitely.
But
But a washcloth is so brilliant.
I also kind of liked the symbolism of that in a way because it harkens back to the brat variety that we put out for Imbolc. It kind of has that echo and whatnot. That is not really a traditional to it. That the first coven I was ever part of, that's how we did that.
Yeah.
Which is
And
really
then
nice because a lot of us lived in apartments. So with a balcony, so you would lay it out on the balcony out there, and then the dew would be on it. And so even in apartment life, you could go out and collect the dew.
Yeah, which is also wonderful for those living in urban environments. And it's much harder to collect dew or surfaces that you really don't want to be collecting dew from. Putting that towel out or washcloth out, towel. You can see where my thoughts are, because
Everything's bigger with the Dagda.
yes, abundance. A towel is a washcloth, just you have a lot more surface to work with. It's a bigger washcloth. Oh, the other practice that I really like, and I know we're going to be planning for ours, is in the morning after you get up, when you're alert enough. I like to say that because, for my case, that's important. Light 1 candle as a spark for the fire to come, for bringing that symbolism of fire in. I'm planning on doing that right after the offering to the Dagda. I was going to light a candle, just starting that fire for the fire festival. And one of the things I really liked in that tradition, I thought was a neat idea that I was going to have us do, is before sunset, before Beltane officially starts, I was going to extinguish that 1 candle. This way, then we can light the Beltane fire, and then I was going to relight that candle from the Beltane fire and let it go until that candle was then fully used up. This way, continuing that symbolism. We have plans to use that later towards the end of the ritual and party of Beltane. So that covers breakfast. Then you want to set the stage for the celebration, for the actual festival. that evening. Music is such an important element of the day. It's really helpful to actually roughly plan your music. Of course, you want to leave a lot of space for spontaneity, for intuition, for creativity to happen. When you're planning your music playlist, there's a couple different things you want to have in mind that you want to oscillate between. Because as much as a all rising playlist is and can be, if all of it is mirth and high energy, the intensity of it can get muted. And so that's where you want to oscillate. One of the things I'm keeping in mind when planning our playlist is the three noble strains of the Dagda's harp. Of course, the main one and the main theme through all the playlists is going to be that the laughter, the joy, the strain of laughter, the dancing merrily. And that will be the main one that everything will be building to, and then dropping a little bit off and then building even higher and higher. But when I'm oscillating, I'm also going to put in some of the strain of lament, the sorrow. Emotional resonance is more of the note I'm going to look for, because it's important to have those moments of breathing. As we like to say, it's important to remember it can't all be the via creativa and via transformativa. You still need to allow some of that via negativa in there, that spaciousness. And then, of course, the strain of slumber. I'm not so much thinking of it in terms of sleep, but as in rest. And so when I'm going to also oscillate that in a little bit as well. Of course, most of it being the dancing merrily. Another part when you're doing your playlist to think about is for the Beltane festival, a lot of them started with processional songs. These are the songs that gathered the community together and then do their walk through the fire towards the actual bonfire itself. When putting together this playlist, I'm going to be keeping in mind, like, how am I building everything? How am I gathering? I'm going to start with songs that are going to be gathering and gaining in intensity, but not necessarily starting out too intense. Songs that are going to want to call in all of the energies and intentions we talked about earlier, and then move into the fire songs. These are the songs that are played and sung around the fire to heighten the group's energy and to carry the festival and the merriment forward through the evening. Of course, if your community can do the live singing and have musicians and stuff in it, then definitely making sure you leave room and space for them. Another thing I would recommend when you're planning music, if you're unsure about this, a wonderful current example of music like that is actually from the Star Wars series Andor. The composer did such a wonderful job with the intro music, with all the music really in Andor. And it's a great example to look to on how to build that sonic energy level, especially in ritual. Because the whole first season concludes with a full song that is introduced in elements and built upon in the intro of every episode throughout that season. Even though it's one song, he actually hits all the different notes, the mirth, the merriment, the lamentation, the slumber. All of that is he pulls all those parts out and introduces them in little elements. It's really quite brilliant and a great example.
Before we move on to the next theme, I would like to just make a note here. A lot of people will try to insist on using Celtic music or Irish music for this part. Now, if you are a fan of Irish music or Celtic music, do this. That is a wonderful thing to do. Where I have issues with this is where it becomes not appropriative, sometimes even that, but where it is tokenized, where you're trying to find the most Irish music, you know what I'm saying? Where you're trying to find the most stereotypical traditional music that you can find. And that is not necessary here. This should be the music of the community. So if you are in a place where it would be more soul music or hip hop, there's some really good Irish rap acts out there that if you've not checked out, highly recommend. Hearing people rap in the Irish language is one of the greatest joys in this life, but do not tokenize any culture. Do not reduce any culture to a frozen, isolated period of the past. That is not how you honor a culture. We are living in a living, vibrant tradition. And so if there are traditional songs that resonate with you, that you feel very strongly about, that resonate with your community, by all means use them. But do not treat Ireland as if it is somehow frozen in some mythic past. And I'm saying Ireland in particular, but whether you're doing this, because there's a version of this festival in Wales and Scotland as well. So if you're using those kinds of musics, just remember these are living cultures. They are still around. They're still here. And we're not trying to have this, it's a small world Disneyfication of their culture. They're still living, vibrant culture. Don't try to ossify them into some like quaint mythic past.
That is a really good point to make, because it's easy to slip up in your intention to want to respect and honor traditions, to pull in things, but you always have to remember that in a way you're developing a ritual, and with that ritual also it's a community ritual, so you want to make sure it's music that's going to resonate with your specific community. That's the most important part of that. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
It really is.
I keep trying to retire my roadwork community there, or a roadwork company. And so it's very important to be mindful of that. Planning the meal. So the feast itself, as we said earlier, remember to involve your community. Let them contribute as well. Traditionally, it was a giant lamb roast, because you'd have your spring lamb and they would just do a giant lamb roast with other sides. When you're planning your feast, once again, remember your community. Keep your community in mind. What is the big feast item that you're going to center your feast around that will resonate with your community? Because it's a transition from spring into summer, keeping in mind like summer barbecue type items are perfect for something like this. So if, like us, if you're on a more restricted budget, burgers, dogs, stuff like that. I know for Charlie and I growing up, that was the big community gathering in the park type festive item.
Because it's not quite as available as it used to be, my mind always goes to doing a fish fry. But
Yeah,
we haven't
fish
had the
fry.
energy to go fishing, and depends on what the fish prices are. But where I grew up, the big summer feasts were always fish fries. And so there's part of me that just really wants to do that.
Yeah, fish fry. Or if you're a seafood faring community, if you're a coastal community, a crawfish boil, or the equivalent for your community, because most communities have some type of fish boil type, seafood type boil dish, and a giant crawfish boil would be a beautiful thing to plan if you're a community that has access to that, because you, in a way, you're already having a cauldron that you can then set up and cook everything in and enjoy as a feast. Plus, odds are if that's something that's popular in your community, then that's already it's going to evoke those feelings of summer and merriment and community. Bannock, it's a special oat bread if you're wanting to try something rich, traditional, but just having some kind of breads there works great for the festive. It's just something you'll need to look into if you want to include that in. For serving dishes, bowls, cauldrons, are great for presentation because they help bring that symbolism of the Dagda's cauldron in. So when you're thinking, if you're doing like more of a traditional barbecue platter, then try to think of more of a bowl shaped serving platter to put that on. Crawfish boils kind of always come in a dish that is more bowl like anyhow, and it just helps with the symbolism. The actual plates to eat off of can be plates, of course, but it's always fun when you can incorporate a cauldron in there. You can even do that with your drink. You can, if you don't have that for the food part, you could always do a big punch bowl for the cauldron of plenty and let the merriment happen. Remember, when you're doing this community serving, keep your food safe and shareable. Lidded pots are very good to help prevent bacteria and stuff from spreading. If you can, keep the food warm. Generally, if you can keep it around 120 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit, it will kill off most harmful things at 120, and it won't really continue to cook the food, because you think a rare beef is about 130, so you're keeping it under rare beef temp. So that should keep it hot enough to kill anything, but not hot enough to cook and toughen anything that you're holding warm. And of course, keep in mind that when you are gathering, planning that ritual time for sharing the food and drink with the land or with the altar as an offering, like we usually, when we're doing our planning, we're definitely going to check with the house spirits and with the kind folk who live out in the yard and help maintain the yard to know where they would like that offering left. They're usually pretty good at letting us know. And it's always nice and respectful to make sure you're including them in that community as part of it. It's an extra nice thing to have them in mind.
For a couple of years now, they've actually had a fairy ring of mushrooms pop up.
Multiple. One year it was nuts because we had 12 of them throughout the yard.
And we're saying, like, where should it go? Like, when you ask the night before, where should it go? And you wake up the next morning and there's literally a mushroom ring.
Okay. That's where they want it.
Put it there.
So there's
Thank
a quick
you.
clienteling. And it's one of those things, developing and building that good relationship will be so helpful. We really lamented that some of the edges of the yard did not have, we didn't really want a fence because a fence is uninviting, but we wanted more privacy. So we wanted it to be some more trees and stuff around the edge of the yard, but we haven't really had time to get around to doing any kind of planting or landscaping to take care of that. And I noticed back in beginning of spring, when I was walking the edge of the yard, the kind folk have planted a nice, a very well organized row of trees that are growing up. It's a mix of natural trees from the area that have just spontaneously started growing, and they're all lined up as if it was landscape. It's quite incredible because it should have been more random if it was actually random. But yeah, just check and make sure you have that as part of the planning. Do the check and see, and you'll generally get just a gut feeling like this is the right way to do this, and just go with your gut on that. So the drink, there is a traditional drink, because I'm going to try to pronounce this and I'll have Charlie correct me. It's a warm milk punch with whiskey.
I believe it's pronounced Scotland.
Scotland? Okay.
Scotland.
Oh, I'm so bad at pronouncing things.
But it's pronouncing things is kind of your thing.
Yeah, it's my thing. But it's a warm milk punch with whiskey, butter, and spices. It's a fun one to plan. Mead is wonderful drink for this festivities. If mead can be tricky to get a hold of, and depending what market you're in and where you're at, if you're not able to get a hold of a mead, you can do like a sweet white wine or a Moscato will work. If you can get your hands on a Takai, it's a wine of the royalty, absolutely delightful and decadent. Odds are, if you can get your hand on a Takai, you could probably get your hand on a mead. I would be shocked if any wine shop had one and not the other.
And of course, Irish beers and Irish whiskeys are always a good,
great
for those who are adults and able to enjoy the fruits of the field.
Yeah, but it's also, it doesn't have to be a sweet drink for the whole night, but for some of the main parts that you're planning, you want something sweet because you want that, it's part of that abundance, that mirth, that prosperity symbolism. Now, when doing that, do not get an ice wine. Ice wine is a late harvest wine and is the wrong energy for Beltane.
Yeah, that's something that you'd want more for salt.
Yeah, punches are wonderful because you can dispense them from a cauldron. And also plan a shared toast. Raise your cup to the Dagda, maybe do a toast, something like "May no guest go unsatisfied." Wonderful toast for the health, harmony, and prosperity of the community, something in that sense. Another thing to keep in mind when you're planning the fire, the smoke from the fire, the food, the prosperity, all of that prosperity intentions, do be careful on what is being offered. So if you're offering prosperity of milk and butter, that can be taken from you. So you have to make sure you're being very careful with your intention, that you're offering from the cauldron of plenty, where all go full and satisfied, and there is no scarcity. And this way, if somebody tries to take that prosperity, they can take till they explode. It's infinite. It's an infinite fount of prosperity. So when you're offering prosperity in your community, you can actually be generous with that prosperity and offer it beyond, as long as you're offering the prosperity from the cauldron of plenty. It's a subtle distinction, but a very important one. Stealing the prosperity from the smoke of the fire and stealing the smoke.
Although if you're one that the smoke goes to, that is technically a blessing.
Yes.
Or felt like it was, but
I was always told it was a blessing, and it would crack people up because wherever I sat, the smoke went to. I would move and the smoke would shift directions and go to where I would sit, and I would move again. And I'd have to remind myself, this is a blessing. This is a blessing. It's a good thing. It can be a little annoying when you sit there with smoke in your face.
Little did you know.
Little did I know.
This is what I often, when telling my own life stories, would say, as what would be foreshadowing for later, the Dagda was trying to get my attention by constantly blowing smoke in my face.
Yeah. Yeah. I should have been a sign right there. And the Dagda's like, hey, Okay, you're not going to pay attention? Fine, you get all the smoke the entire time. Hours and hours and hours of smoke. And literally, like, I've gone the full 360 around the fire ring over a couple hour time period, and the smoke was always in my face. Yeah, should have been I should have caught yeah, and I'm a little slow sometimes. Yeah. So that's the thing when you're planning your offering, because there's prosperity of milk and butter is very sacred to this festival. We remember to offer that's the prosperity of milk and butter from the cauldron of plenty. Subtle distinction, but makes a huge thing. And the same thing with the smoke of the fire. This is the prosperity from the Dagda's cauldron that is blessing the entire community. And so this way, anyone who wants to take the prosperity from the smoke, they can partake of it as deeply as they want. They can deal with the Dagda, and the Dagda will gladly deal with them. It's a fun little way to protect you from smoke thieves, should you have any lurking around. And it's a great way to also bless the whole community, not just your immediate community, but the whole community that might be receiving any of the blessing of the smoke. And with that, that gives you a nice structure for planning a wonderful feast.
And do remember that at the second battle of Motoya, which is really funny because there was a first battle and there's a story in the first battle, but first battle is in what it is. The second one's the important one that we really focus on and that the stories are all about. When all of the powerful ones are drawn together, so the whole of the Tua de Danann have come together and the witches are offering their powers to the cause, and the cupbearers and the druids and the various goddesses and gods are all offering their abilities to the service to help wage this great battle that is to come. This is where the Dagda says, all of the things that you have offered, I will do them all. And this is where Lu calls him Dagda, the good one, the good god, for the first time. This is where he earns his name. He is the one who will do everything. He is the one who will take care. He is the one that will rush out onto the battlefield and protect and serve and do the work that needs to be done to protect the people and to ensure success and victory. This is where he gets his name, Dagda, the good god. And so while you're getting ready for this feast and for this festival, remember, of all of the holidays, this is a holiday in honor of Dagda. So it should be fun. It should be light. It should be lighthearted. It should be filled with joy and mirth and shenanigans. As many shenanigans as you can get into, because that is, in so many ways, the spirit of the Dagda. So as we're getting ready for this, hopefully you have prepared. Hopefully you are looking forward to it. And I would almost say that this year, Beltane is so important for us because of all of the fear and doubt and worry that is being poured into us by the media, by those who are in power, who are seeking control. It's so important for us to find these oases of hope, of meaning, of purpose, so that we can refuel and recharge and be ready for everything that is to come. So what are you planning on doing this Beltane? Are you planning anything special for Beltane? Don't feel bad if you're just going to have a small group. We're just going to have a small group. It's going to be us and maybe a couple friends. So let us know. Let us know in the comments if you're listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, or CreationsPaths.com. You can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they will not let us know. So leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to CreationsPaths.com, click on chat, and you leave your comment there. We will be able to see it and get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us through Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both. Or you can support us using the Cash App hashtag CreationsPaths. Thank you to everybody who does that. It helps us keep the lights on, keep a roof over our head, and food on our table. Thank you all so much, especially right now. It is needed. If we've ever done anything that's helped you out or you think would help out others, please share it with them, because that helps us out more than you could possibly know.
As we head out today, may the Dagda's harp play songs of harmony and mirth in our ears. May the Dagda's club bring life and health to all of us. May the Dagda's cauldron bring gifts of prosperity and plenty. And may the flame of summer burn bright in us. And may our tables always overflow. Amen.
Amen.